normally when people go on holiday, they see lovely things sitting on a beach with a pina colada in their hand. A phobic, however, will see plane exploding, crashing into pieces in midair. Now, obviously, if you're visualizing and you're seeing that over and over again, you are going to be scared.
This is the Radio Vagabond podcast. I was at WTM World Travel Market in London in November. World Travel Market is a leading global event for the travel industry to meet industry professionals and conduct business deals. This is where global travel buyers network and make deals with over 5,000 of the biggest destinations and brands in the world. And when we're talking about traveling, flying is a big part of it. And since 1 in 3 people have a fear of flying, I thought it would be interesting and relevant to hear from someone who helps people get rid of that phobia. So I got in touch with Lawrence Layton, who's arguably the world's leading authority on fear of flying. He's also a renowned neuro-linguistic practitioner and thought field therapist. I met up with Lawrence and his business partner, Mark Wine, who's an ex-phobic himself. They run a fear of flying course that is hugely successful and has helped over 10,000 people to date. It was a bit noisy inside the ExCeL in London, so we walked outside, not really knowing that there would be noisy planes over our heads. But then we thought it was a fitting and relevant sound effect to the conversation, so we stayed there. This episode is supported in part by Hotels25.com. If you need a place to stay after you get off a plane, then you should try looking for it on Hotels25.com. It searches a lot of the biggest hotel search sites in the world, compares the prices, and find out where you can get the best deal. Hotels25.com. My name is Palle Bo, and this is the Radio Vagabond. We're here at WTM, and I'm with Mark and Lawrence. And you guys, you started a company that's super relevant for people who listen to this podcast and would like to go to places, because no matter you like it or not, the easiest thing is to get on a plane and fly, even though it's getting politically incorrect. But flying is the thing. And just by pure coincidence, a plane is right over our head right now. We're
Very relevant, very relevant.
We're very close to London City Airport, and oh my God, it's just flying.
It brings the atmosphere to life, doesn't it? It really does.
So we chose a good spot for it. No,
Perfect.
Lawrence, tell me what it is that you guys do.
We run a fear of flying course with Europe's largest or leading airline, EasyJet. We run it in the UK. We run live courses across the country, but we also have an online course in multiple different languages. And our concept is to help as many people as we can, because fear of flying can be made up of multiple different aspects. So for some people it's the fear of heights, for some it's the fear of enclosed spaces or claustrophobia, for some it's the fear of being out of control, especially if they suffer with panic attacks. It's a really big thing, panic attacks. And for people that have never flown before, it's the fear of the unknown. So on the course, once all of those unknown elements become known, it's no longer scary anymore.
Do you have any phobias?
I don't have any phobias. I mean, obviously I'm I've worked with phobias for over 20 years now. I've also worked with a lot of large-scale companies like Microsoft and HSBC, helping them to sort of overcome things like mindset and productivity. But for me, I'm probably best known for a television show that I did, a primetime TV show in England called The Fear of Flying, where I took 40 of the most extreme British phobics and I got 38 of them to fly. And that's actually how I met my business partner, because one of the participants on that course was Mark's sister.
Yes, actually, funny enough, my sister and I both had a fear of flying. So, yeah, I come at this from a phobic's perspective, or actually an ex-phobic now. I had a fear of flying about 22 years ago. Actually, it started probably in my 20s. I'm 51 now. So it started sort of probably 30 years ago, and about 10 years of struggling with it, and then eventually I stopped flying. So I didn't fly for 2 years. Interestingly, my sister Alison coincidentally also had a fear of flying.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's hereditary, but in her case she had it, I had it. She ended up on Lawrence's TV show. It worked for her. And what was interesting when Lawrence did his show, show, he actually did it without the help of anyone giving any technical advice. So when we run our course now, we actually have a captain or a senior pilot giving sort of or dismissing some of the myths that people have about flying. So we deal with all the noises that people are going to hear. We explain what it all is. We understand or help them to understand.
Yeah, because many times it's I don't know what that is.
Precisely, and knowledge is king.
Yeah.
But to Lawrence's credit, he did his bit with just techniques. He didn't even have the benefit of giving those, because a lot of those people that were on his show, their phobia wasn't just necessarily claustrophobia or a fear of heights. They also just had a fear of turbulence. I mean, Alison, my sister, for a prime had a fear of turbulence. So we actually now dovetail what Lawrence does by bringing a pilot into it. So we actually explain all the technical side as well. So on the course, you get a technical fix and you get a psychological fix. And actually, when you bring the two together, because some people don't know which part of the equation they need, they come into the course and think, okay, have I got a technical fear? Have I got a psychological fear? Someone who has a fear of turbulence actually possibly still has a psychological fear. It's not just the fact the plane's moving. There's other things going on at the same time. So they get the whole package. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, for me, the interesting thing was, having been a phobic and having been in that space and having had it restrict my life, I stopped flying for 2 years. I'm quite passionate about what we do, because to see people overcome their fear is amazing. And since we set this up 7 years ago, we've now had about 10,000 people pass through the course successfully.
Oh, wow.
To put that many people in the air, I was going to say, is a pretty interesting thing to do.
Yeah. But back up a bit, because when you approached Lawrence, was it, let's start a business, or was it, please help me?
No, actually, well, okay, I saw Lawrence on a please help me basis initially through my sister. So, interestingly, and I don't mind admitting, the first time I saw Lawrence was because I had a fear of public speaking and I couldn't do interviews. I ran a previous business where I was, can't stop me now.
You can't.
You did too good a job. But seriously, when I first met Lawrence, I wasn't comfortable having microphones and TV cameras on me, and I was involved in a very large indoor equestrian event in the UK, which I own, called Horse of the Year Show, and we had live cameras there, and I used to struggle initially with that whole concept. So I wanted to overcome that phobia of public speaking. A lot of people have that. So I saw, it's interesting, we've got another plane going overhead. So it's interesting, I saw Lawrence through that, and then I went back to see him and said, okay, Lawrence, look, you helped me with this. What can you do with my fear of flying? So he gave me some techniques to help me with that. I then sort of learned also more about the technical side of aviation. And so between all of those components, I was able to take to the skies. So when I sold the business 10 years ago, I was looking for something else to do. And I went to Lawrence with the idea of a phobia show, because I've been in the events business. I knew he was a phobia expert. Mm-hmm. We got talking, and between us came up with the concept that actually, of all the phobias that exist, the biggest one, and perhaps the one that is most debilitating for people that they need to overcome, is a fear of flying. So we came up with the concept of the fear of flying course. Went to EasyJet, they partnered with us, and the rest is now history. And here we are 7 years later. As Lawrence said, we've got an online course in 5 languages, all through Europe. On top of that, we've run 125 courses, live courses, so we put 125 aircraft in the air over the last 7 years, and 10,000 people on board them. So it's been a great success, and the greatest success for us is seeing the people coming off the other end of it and going off and flying. And actually, all over our Facebook page, you actually see them sort of posting messages and with their certificates saying how they've done, and we've had them on the Great Wall of China, we've had them in Sydney, Australia, so all over the place. So yeah, it's been really good.
People always come to us and they think that their fear, it's impossible to cure, their fear is worse than anybody else's fear, that maybe we could help other people but we couldn't help them. So anybody that is listening to this that thinks it's impossible, there is no way that we can help them, that's just simply not true, because everybody that comes on the course, whether it's online or live, feel exactly the same. So whatever your fear is, no matter how extreme, the process of actually helping is exactly the same. Because if you understand the mind of a phobic does 2 things to create fear. They play negative mind movies of the worst case scenario, and they say negative things to themselves. So look, normally when people go on holiday, you know, they see lovely things sitting on a beach with a pina colada in their hand. A phobic, however, will see plane exploding, crashing into pieces in midair. Now obviously, if you're visualizing and you're seeing that over and over again, you are going to be scared. So the process that we take them through, it doesn't matter what the fear is, how extreme that fear is. Once you actually learn how to run your brain more effectively instead of letting your brain run you, then everything changes.
Yeah, but how does it work? Is it hypnotherapy? Is it?
No, it's come derived from NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. So I first teach people how to breathe in a crisis situation, which is really important. Mm-hmm. Then I teach people how to delete their negative mind movies that are playing inside of their head. Then I teach them a tapping technique, which is called TFT, and that disconnects the fear. So TFT was created by an American psychologist called Roger Callahan, and he used it to go into a Vietnam War veteran hospital to help people with post-traumatic stress. It really is quite an extraordinary technique. When I try and explain it to people, they look at me really odd because the technique involves tapping. So instead of using, like an acupuncturist would use needles on what are called meridian points, they're energy points of the body, we're actually going to be tapping on them. So the technique involves tapping.
You're listening to the Radio Vagabond podcast. Before we continue, I'd like to remind you that I would be so thrilled if you shared it on Facebook or Twitter. And now, back to the show. Okay, before we wrap up, can you share one or two tips that's really hands-on and something I can use if I'm afraid of going into an airplane?
Absolutely. Well, in my case, I'll talk about Turbulence because that was mine. So for me, what I found back then, and we use it now with a lot of the people on our courses, when you're flying and you feel the plane moving, if you get a cup of water or a half-filled bottle of water and put it on the tray in front of you, because the tray's fixed to the aircraft, so the water will effectively move in the same way as the aircraft's moving. And actually, when you look at that, even in turbulence, there'll barely be a ripple. Whereas actually, if you're driving along, and most of us drive a car, you wouldn't dream of having an open cup of water, let alone an open cup of coffee on your dashboard, because within about 2 or 3 roads, it would be gone. It would be all over the car. Whereas actually, in an aircraft, you can fly through turbulence and have the cup there, and the water would barely be moving.
Really? I didn't know that. I would,
everyone's going to be trying that.
Yeah, I would always be holding my cup and like being on a roller coaster.
Yeah, and I think that's the point about turbulence. People sort of talk about a roller coaster, but actually turbulence is nothing like a roller coaster. Yeah. So the reality of turbulence is the plane is not moving anywhere near as much as people feel it is, but their reference point is wrong. Yeah. They're looking out the side of a window. It's a very small window. They have no real reference point, especially if you're flying at night and it's dark. But again, just put the bottle of water in front of you and it will probably give you a different perspective on how the plane's moving.
That's a good tip.
My top tip, focus at what you want rather than what you don't want. And the mind can't process negatives. And I'm going to give you an example. If I say to you, don't think about an elephant, the first thing you're going to do is you think about an elephant. Yeah. So imagine this. Imagine a phobic about to step on a plane and they start saying to themselves, I don't want to die. Right? Classically, they're now focusing on the worst case scenario. So I always say to people, the biggest tip is get your mind and focus it on what you want. So see yourself on that plane, calm and relaxed, not the plane crashing in midair.
Yeah. Also a good tip. Please tell me how do we find you?
Well, if you go to our website, which is fearless-flyer.com, and you will see lots of information. You can also download some free information, but there's the online course in multiple different languages, and there is also access to our live course if you live in the UK.
Yeah, and I will put a link in the show notes, so just look at the show notes right wherever you're listening and click on that link if you want to know more. Thank you, guys. Supported in part by Hotels25.com and produced by radioguru.co.uk. My name is Palabo. Thanks for listening. See ya. Oh, Lawrence, I have a phobia that you might be able to help me with. It's the fear of running naked backwards into a door handle.
And is that normally after a night out with a few drinks?
Typically, but it's there all the time. If I think of running naked backwards into a door handle...
reverse the movie and start running naked forward. But just be careful you don't get arrested.
Thank you, guys. I don't know if I'll include that.